Hi, welcome back to another video. So yes, I started by investing $90.66 in the stock market in October of 2021. I opened up a brokerage account on Questrade and bought 4 stocks, ETFs, exchange traded funds. Exchange traded funds and index funds are a kind of mutual fund. So, a mutual fund is a basket or a bundle of stocks. The difference between a mutual fund and index funds and ETFs is that index funds are based on a fixed formula because they track a specific index or a specific index, such as the S&P 500, the Dow, the Nasdaq, the FTSE, the TSX, the Russell 2000. You get the idea. Anyway, I digress. So, I started by investing in 4 ETFs. I bought 3 shares of XEI, which is a BlackRock high dividend ETF. And I bought 1 share of a bond ETF, ZEG. And so in October, my first investment of $90.66 was for 4 ETFs. And they were both in my tax sheltered account, a TFSA. That's equivalent to the Roth IRA. So that's how I started my DIY investment journey. And today, I'll share with you how much dividend income I have received from this portfolio since I started investing about 42 months ago. So that's about 3.5 years ago. Get ready to be encouraged. My first dividend payment was for $1.62, which was just enough for a small coffee, but that was all the proof that I needed. And here I am today sharing all the progress that I have made. Now, for those who may be new to investing, a dividend is simply a type of passive income. It is a company sharing its profits with its shareholders. If you own shares in a company, a publicly listed company, then you're a shareholder of that company. And if the company pays dividends, then you will receive a dividend payment, a cash dividend payment, if you hold stocks of a company that pays dividends. The other thing to note is that dividends are not guaranteed. A company can change its dividend payment anytime by reducing the amount or eliminating it altogether. Now, I tend to invest in blue chip stocks of large, well-established companies with large market capitalizations and companies that have a record of being dependable dividend payers, dividend aristocrats or dividend kings. Now, a dividend aristocrat is basically a company that has consistently paid and increased its dividends for at least 25 years. A dividend king is similar, but they would have consistently paid without interruption and raised their dividends for at least 50 years. Think of companies like Procter & Gamble, Johnson & Johnson, TD Bank, Coca-Cola. Now, if you enjoy content like this, please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. It helps the channel grow. It also encourages me to continue making these videos. Now, let's look at the numbers. Now, if you've watched any of my prior videos, you'd be familiar with this activity summary. So I have downloaded my activity summary from my brokerage account on Questrade, and you will see here that column B says transaction date. That would be the date on which I was paid a dividend. Column C says action. That would be dividends. Other actions might include selling and buying stocks. So I have filtered simply by dividends because I am only sharing dividends. And column D says tickers. Tickers are codes by which stocks trade on the stock market. The ticker symbol for Coca-Cola, for instance, is KO. The ticker symbol for Manulife is MFC. The ticker symbol for Royal Bank of Canada is RY. Ticker symbol for Apple is AAPL. Column E, this is the name of the company whose stock I'm holding or the description of the stock. SPLG, for instance, is the ticker symbol for the SPDR S&P 500 ETF, and VTI is the ticker symbol for Vanguard's Total Stock Market ETF, name or description of the stock I'm holding. Column F says quantity. That's the number of shares for which I am being paid dividends. Column G says net amount. Now, as I indicated earlier, this portfolio is on Questrade, and the brokerage allows investors to hold stocks either in Canadian or US dollars, depending on where the stock is listed. So column G has net amount because for all of my Canadian listed stocks, I get paid dividends in Canadian dollars, and for all my US listed stocks, I get paid dividends in US dollars, and I hold the stocks in the respective currencies as well. Column H is the currency. Again, US dollars, Canadian dollars. Column I says all Canadian. Now, I have converted all US dollar dividends into Canadian dollars so that we are comparing apples to apples for reasonability, I always say. Column K says activity type, dividends. Column L says account type. I have 3 different accounts on Questrade. I have 2 tax sheltered accounts. I have the RRSP. The RRSP is equivalent to the 401k for those in the US, and I have a TFSA account, and this is equivalent to the Roth IRA. And I also have a margin account, a plain old taxable account. And so I have 3 different accounts on this portfolio. Now, let's look at dividend income per year. We'll start with 2021, of course, the earliest year. In 2021, as I had indicated, I started in October. And remember, I received $1.62 in October. Then, of course, there was November. I got 3 payments. And in December, I got 4 dividend payments. I will not look at this month by month for every year. Otherwise, we'll be here forever. The video will be an hour long. So that's 2021. $61.90 for 8 different payments. And you will notice under the tickers that all these tickers are for ETFs. So as is often recommended, I started out by just investing only in ETFs and index funds, actually all ETFs, because ETFs, being a basket of stocks, come highly diversified and they help you manage the volatility in the market. So this is 2021. 2022. So this is 2022, the first full year of this portfolio. You can see that I have many more payments because obviously it was a full year. And you will also notice that I now have individual stocks. Look, Coca-Cola, Royal Bank of Canada, Procter & Gamble, Apple, Bank of Nova Scotia, AbbVie, and so on. And so in 2022, the full year, from January to December, in total, I earned $889.10. Let's look at 2023. In 2023, similar, you'll notice too now that there are fewer and fewer ETFs. I have many more individual stocks than ETFs. As time progresses, you'll also notice that I now have 3-digit share counts. I have 120 shares of Bank of Montreal, 102 shares of Coca-Cola. This is 2023. So this has been more than a year of building up those positions. 100 shares of TD. I have stocks in different sectors. Fortis is a utility company. Enbridge is energy. Bank of Montreal, of course, and Royal Bank. These are financial services. Apple is largely a growth stock. As you can see from its dividend amount, really modest, really minimal. And as I indicated earlier, I like large, well-established companies. You can see I have Procter & Gamble, I have Coca-Cola, Royal Bank of Canada, Bank of Montreal, and so on. So that is 2023. In total, in 2023, I received $1,667.62. Now, if you'll recall, in 2022, I received a total of $889.10. And so at $1,667.62, I have increased my dividend income by over 80% in 2023 compared to 2022. So almost 90% increase in dividend income in 2023 over 2022. Now let's look at 2024. And now we can look at month by month breakdown. So in January of 2024, I received 4 payments, 2 payments from TD Bank, 1 from Altria Group. I have TD both in my RRSP and TFSA for a total of $226.48. So this is January of 2024. February of 2024. Look at that. This is probably the highest single monthly dividend income at this point in time, nearly $360 from 4 payments. Notice I have 120 shares of Bank of Montreal and received $181.20 in a single payment. Royal Bank of Canada, 78 shares, $107. Procter & Gamble, 50 shares, $63.50. Apple, 26, $7.17 for a total of $359.51. In March of 2024, I received 3 different payments for $118.09 from 3 stocks. SCHD is a Schwab dividend ETF 45 shares, I received $37.13. Fortis again is a utility company. I have 100 shares in my TFSA, and Enbridge, 24 shares in my margin account. So $118.09. Apple of 2024, $293.27. I have TD now in my RRSP and TFSA. Altria Group. This is a cigarette manufacturer. I think they make cigarettes. 54 shares. It's a great dividend payer. $71.44. Coca-Cola, 102 shares, paid me $66.78. In May, pretty much the same. 4 different payments for a total of $364.25. That's probably the highest up to this point again. Bank of Montreal, $181.20 for 120 shares. That's a long way from $1.62 for my 1 cup of coffee. This will get me groceries for the whole week. And so that was May of 2024. And then in June of 2024, look at that. 8 different payments. $214.03. Alphabet, Google. Now, when I first got into Google, it was purely for growth. However, early in 2024, I think in April, Google announced that it would start to pay dividends. So these were the very first payments of Google. I have Google both Class C and Class A, and I have it both in my RRSP and TFSA. So 23 shares in my RRSP paid me $6.39. That's Class C. Class C, 44 shares in my TFSA paid me $10.40. And Class A, again in my TFSA, 25 shares paid me $5.91. So Google now technically a dividend stock. Johnson & Johnson, new position, 27 shares, paid me $46.54. Visa is new as well, 10 shares. And then Fortis, I have Enbridge now in 2 different accounts. I previously had it only in my margin account. I started a new position in my TFSA as well. So $214.03, June of 2024. July of 2024, 5 different payments for $288.33. Again, TD paid me twice. You can see the number of shares for TD are now higher. And so that is July of 2024. In August of 2024, 4 payments. Notice I still have 120 shares of Bank of Montreal, but my dividend amount is now $186. This means that Bank of Montreal must have raised its dividend amounts per share. Also for the Royal Bank of Canada, I still have 78 shares, and now I receive $110.76, up from $107. So the Royal Bank of Canada must have also increased its dividends. And then Procter & Gamble and Apple, August of 2024, $374.41. September of 2024, look at this, 9 different payments, $244.70. I also hold Visa largely for growth because, as you can see, 10 shares, $7.23. The utility company Fortis and the energy company Enbridge are great dividend stocks. Because I'm building a dividend portfolio for cash flow, I have to be mindful and find dependable dividend pairs. And then October of 2024, 4 payments for $259.83. That's October of 2024. November 2024, 4 different payments again. Look at that, $425.04. The big change is in Bank of Montreal, added to this position from 120 to 149, so about 29 additional shares and a single payment of $230.95. It's probably my largest single payment up to this point from any single stock. And I believe this is the first month I break above the $400 mark in dividend income. So that was November of 2024, $425. And then December of 2024, ooh, look at this, 14 different payments. I think I did a whole video about this as well. So December 2024 and nearly $450. So anyway, I started a new position in SPLG. This is a SPDR S&P 500 ETF. I did a whole video on this as well. 98 shares. So the S&P 500 is predominantly for growth as well. I also increased VTI. This is Vanguard Total Stock Market ETF, up from 9 to 21 shares now. Paid me $28.47. And so, yes, 14 different payments in December of 2024, nearly $450. That's my highest single monthly payment up to this point. Now, let's look at 2025. Start with January. 4 different payments, $267.80. Notice I have 136 shares of TD, $142.80. By now, you might have realized that I hold 3 of Canada's big 5 banks. I have shares in TD, the Royal Bank of Canada, and Bank of Montreal. They're great dividend payers and they've been around forever. All the big 5 banks of Canada were founded in the 1800s. XIC. XIC is a BlackRock ETF that tracks the entire Canadian market. It's a position I started late last fall. I think I did a video on this, the same video that has SPLG, the Spider S&P 500 ETF. February 2025. Look at that. Nearly $560 in dividend income from 6 different payments. I now have the Royal Bank of Canada in 2 different accounts, both in my RRSP and TFSA. I must have run out of room in my RRSP and started a new position in my TFSA. So together, Royal Bank of Canada paid me $182.04 between those 2 accounts. Then AbbVie, this is a new position as well. 30 shares paid me $59.80. AbbVie is a pharmaceutical company, a great dividend payer, a dividend aristocrat, and it has stable dividends as well. So yes, $558.33. That's the highest monthly dividend income I have received in the portfolio so far. Moving on to March of 2025, $480.89. Look at that. 14 different payments. SCHD. I now have SCHD in both my RRSP and TFSA. So I have it in 2 different accounts. SCHG, SPLG, and XIC. I did a video in which I was starting these new positions in November of 2024. SCHG is a Schwab US Large Cap Growth ETF. So it's largely a growth ETF. So 14 different payments in March of 2025 for a total of nearly $481. Finally, April of 2025, the most recent month, $316.48 for 4 different payments. TD twice, Canadian Natural Resources and Coca-Cola, $316.48. So that's 2025. Now let's look at all my dividend payments over the last 42 months. So from the 30th of April, which was the last dividend payment I received last week, go down, to October of 2021. In total, I have received $7,859.75 over the last 42 months. So nearly $7,860 in dividend income. And this is purely dividend income. Of course, I've also seen capital appreciation in my portfolio, and that is the greater growth. Now, because we've just completed April, I have not yet updated my dividend tracker. So let's go and update my dividend tracker together. So this is my dividend tracker. As you'll see, it starts in 2021 because that's when I opened this brokerage account on Questrade. And the first 9 months are blocked off because I started investing in October. You'll see first dividend payment $1.62, November 2021, $3.72, December 2021, the first meaningful amount of dividends, $56.56 for a total of $61.90. The first full year of dividend investing, I received a total of $889.10. That's equivalent to about $74 in monthly dividend income and about $17 in weekly dividend income. That was 2022. 2023, second full year, you can see I received $1,667.62. That's equivalent to about $139 in monthly dividend income, about $32 in weekly dividend income. That is 2023. And then 2024, the third full year, $3,617.64. You'll notice that there is an increase of more than 110% in dividend income in 2024 over 2023. Look at the trends too. December 2021, $56, then $139 in 2022, that's December, $152 in December of 2023, and then in December of 2024, nearly $450. And then look at October, where we started with $162, $76, $278, $259, and so on. And so now 2025, let's update April of 2025, $316.48. Voila. So 2025 year to date, $1,623.50. Compare that to how much I received in the whole of 2023, $1,667.62. The difference is less than $50, about $44. I am very happy with my progress. I hope that you get encouraged by seeing my small movements that are progressive. Oh, by the way, for 2024, my annual monthly dividend income was over $300 per month, and average weekly income about $70. My projection for 2025 is that my monthly dividend income will exceed $500 per month, and this all in just 4 years. That goes to tell you that if you remain consistent, good things will happen. So that was my dividend tracker. I hope you are encouraged by my progress. I think the challenge for many people is getting started at all. Do not try to wait until you're ready, because ready you'll never be. Because that was me in September of 2021. Waiting until I get money, then I'll start investing. Then something just snapped in October, and I'm glad I started when I did. So do not self-sabotage by waiting until you have more money to start investing. Start with whatever amount you have. So I hope you enjoyed the video and found it helpful. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing and sharing with family and friends. I'll see you in the next one.